He's the king of the energy space. Chris Berry is also the founder of House Mountain Partners and the editor of Disruptive Discoveries Journal. Chris, always a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Here we are at Minds and Money in Toronto. You were on a panel moderating this morning with Ross Beatty, talking about renewable energy sources.
Sure.
And one thing that was really interesting is he was saying, and you were discussing how this might be positive news, the renewable energy sector, for metals. Let's talk about that.
I think one of the paradoxes of clean energy or green energy is that they're actually pretty resource intensive or metals intensive. And so obviously, you know, if current demand trends continue, we're going to need a lot more lithium, a lot more cobalt, a lot more copper. And Ross made the point that just with respect to solar and solar power proliferation, you're going to need a lot more silver, which is interesting because, you know, silver obviously has the precious metal component and the industrial metal component. So, you know, I think the broader point was that technology really drives demand for these metals, both on the precious side and the industrial side.
Now, Chris, being a cheerleader for our viewers back home, you know, a lot of them would want me to say, well, they've been waiting on the sidelines, waiting for silver to move, waiting for that industrial play, and it's not happening.
Yes, that is correct.
So
I'm not sure what to...
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of frustration of why silver isn't moving higher.
Well, again, I think it's challenging again because you have two ways of looking at the metal. But I can tell you that silver demand in solar and solar power proliferation is increasing.
Okay.
I think, again, to the tune of 100 million ounces per year. And this is in a billion ounce a year market. So, you know, I just think it's a really powerful force longer term. Right,
so longer story there. Also, you know, you mentioned cobalt, and last time you were on, you were really liking cobalt, more so than lithium. Is that still...
I really do like the cobalt story. The challenge is it's very hard to play because very few people can get physical exposure to cobalt. You could, you know, I guess go into the futures market on the London Metal Exchange and do it that way. Since we last spoke, Cobalt 27 is a new vehicle that actually has invested in physical cobalt, and that gives you exposure that way. But, you know, beyond that, you're looking at companies like China Molybdenum or Glencore, who owns 30% of the market. But, you know, they're such a big mining company that the exposure that you get to cobalt by investing there is relatively small. So it's an exciting metal with respect to vehicle electrification, but it's still very challenging.
So what's cobalt used for?
Well, it's used for a number of different things, actually. I think there are anywhere from 45 to 50 different end uses. Obviously, everyone's excited about it because of its use in lithium-ion batteries, its ability to maintain, or I guess prevent what's known as thermal runaways. In other words, the battery getting too hot and exploding. And that is really the growth that you would sort of expect with respect to cobalt going forward.
Finally, let's talk about gold. Last time you were on, Chris, also bullish gold here. How do you feel about the metal right now?
I have no feeling, to be honest with you. Again, I just think owning the physical and just keeping yourself protected that way is the way to do it.
Hang on tight. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching. We'll have much more for you. We're just starting from the Minds and Money conference here in Toronto, so be sure to stay tuned to Kitco.com. Thanks, Chris.